Hi everyone and welcome to this week's video. This week we are back in the greenhouse. It is the middle of September and we're going to have a look today at our little seedlings. Remember the cool flower seeds that we sowed back in August? And we're going to have a look at how they are getting on today, which ones have germinated into nice little seedlings, and we're going to have a look as well at the ones that I've been sowing in the last few days as well, because it's not too late to keep sowing your hardy annual cool flowers just now it's September. You want to kind of get it finished in the next couple of weeks before the frost set in for winter time, especially if you're here in Scotland in zone 8B. It's definitely worth getting a move on with the cool flower sowing in the next few days, and definitely by kind of end of next week and things, you're probably wanting to slow down on that now just to get them established before the cold weather sets in. Also today we are going to be having a look at what perennial seeds you can sow just now in September time. And perennial seeds, they're not difficult to grow from seed into lovely established plants. And if you start them off now in the late summer, early autumn, then you can get them established with good root growth. They will turn into sturdy little plants and then they will go dormant over the winter period. But when you plant them out in the springtime next year, they will really have a head start. They'll put on some new growth really quickly, and you may even get some flowers in your first year from sowing them, which is fantastic. And of course, because they're perennial, they'll come back year after year for you and they'll just get bigger and stronger. So it's definitely worthwhile having a look at what perennial flower seeds you would like to try at home. Another thing we're going to be doing today is having a look at the sweet pea seeds. Great time of year to sow your sweet pea seeds. So I have been prepping up some seed trays here, ready to put some in this morning. So lots and lots of jobs to do at the moment in the greenhouse. It's just a race against time just to keep on sowing those seeds and potting on and getting all these little seedlings established before that really chilly wintry weather sets in. We want them to have a great start so that they can put down good roots and then go dormant over the winter and come back for us in the springtime as these fantastic new plants. So as well as working in the greenhouse and doing lots of jobs at the moment, I am starting to do quite a lot outside as well. It certainly seems to have come along really quickly, autumn this year, and we just suddenly seem to be tailing off with the flowers and it's time to get beds cleared. Still got the dahlias on the go I was really lucky last week because the temperatures were really dipping overnight. We had 3 degrees one night and I did wonder whether that would be enough for the dahlias to go, but I did fleece them in the hope that that would get them through, and it seems to have worked. So we've still got them going this week, but I definitely think days are numbered and things are just not flowering as quickly. We have got new buds and things coming on dahlias, but they're just taking that a bit longer to come out. The overnight temperatures have increased again this week, so we'll see how we go and see if we can stretch those flowers into October. It's largely been quite dry, but because flowers seem to be finishing a lot quicker this year, it has enabled me to start clearing some beds. And that just gets me a little bit ahead. If I can prep beds, get them cleared, get them mulched, ready for tulip planting in November, then I'm not chasing my tail then, because quite often I'm trying to keep the flowers going as long as is humanly possible, and I've still got beds with bits of flowers in them. The bulbs arrive, they've got nowhere to go, and it all gets a bit of a shambles. So this year I'm trying to be a little bit more organised, and if I recognise that a bed is finished flowering, then it's ready to be cleared now. I'm also doing a bit of dividing and lifting of perennials at the moment and relocating them to other areas of the garden. As I've kind of evolved over the last few years, I've added more plants, and some beds have got annuals growing in them and perennials, and it's just not really working. I would far rather have specific perennial bed spaces and specific annual beds, and that means that I can deal with them a lot better at different times of year. I can rotate annual flowers better. The perennials can do their own thing in an area of the garden where I know they're going to come back year after year, and I can have these clear annual beds that I can cover over in the winter time, keep them weed free, get the soil warmed up a little bit more for early spring planting, and that kind of thing just helps. Whereas if I've got mixtures of perennials and annuals all in the same bed, I can't cover them over the winter time because the perennials have to be able to grow. So Just streamlining things, becoming more efficient is definitely going to help me in the years to come. So I'm quite excited about that, and I will do some videos on my work outside in the garden in the coming weeks. But for today, let's have a look at what we're doing in the greenhouse, because it's quite exciting showing you what I am growing for next year. And also what perennials I'm growing from seed just now, because there's lots of different ones that you can get a head start on now. They'll put their roots down and then away they'll go in the spring next year when you plant them outside. And you'll hopefully get flowers on your perennials from that first year of growing. So for the past few weeks, it's been fairly constant of sowing seeds and getting them germinated, lifting the domes off, letting them grow on a bit and then potting them on. So these are the new batches in here that I've just put on in the last few days. So I don't think we'll have anything germinating yet. If I lift the domes off just now, I can let you know the kind of things that I've been sowing in September here. So this little seed tray over here contains my larkspur seeds at the moment, and no sign of these, but I only did put them on a few days ago. The seeds were kept in the fridge for a week or two before I have sown them because they like a period of cold, and they will germinate for me, but again, like the Oralia, I find the larkspur are slower and it might take a while into the autumn for them to germinate, but it's well worth sowing them now so that you can get these larger, bigger, sturdier plants growing over the autumn, and then they'll shoot away in the springtime, giving you some lovely flowers. So these are my annual salvias, and they have germinated within 6 days, really quick and easy to germinate, and they make a really lovely cut flower which will start flowering June next year, I think, from these little seeds just now. And here I've got some Visnaga that I am growing. I find it slightly more difficult to germinate than I do with the Magus, but it is a very nice flower to grow for arrangements too. Over in this seed tray, I have got some hare's tail grass just germinating, and this again can overwinter and get away quickly in the springtime. Love using grasses in arrangements, and we'll maybe do a video on this next growing season, and I can show you the different ones that I grow. But this has germinated really quickly, again in just 6 days since I sowed it. In this seed tray here, I've got Bells of Ireland. Now, Bells of Ireland are a tricky one for me to germinate, and I do find that sometimes if I just leave the seed tray alone, even if it's been several weeks or even into months since I did sow them and nothing's happened, but if I just leave it, you often find that it does eventually come. Even sometimes putting the seed tray outside in the autumn time, if nothing's happening in the greenhouse, that might just bring them on, because the period of weather changing and the temperatures changing can sometimes just be enough to cause germination to happen. Poplarium again as another one that I really love to grow, and it should germinate for me fairly quickly. It likes to germinate in the dark, which is why I've got some seed compost on top rather than just a thin layer of vermiculite. And here we've got a second sowing of Dorcas. I put the first sowing of Dorcas on in August, and that's germinated fine, but that was a white variety. This is Dorcas Dara, which is more reddy variety of Dorcas and is absolutely gorgeous. So that's just a little update on some of the hardy annual seeds that I have been sowing this September. And now we will go on and have a little look at what perennial seeds you can sow just now in August-September time for cut flowers and lovely perennial flowering plants to have in your borders next year, and they will flower for you for years to come. So unlike annuals, your perennial flowers that you grow from seed, they will keep coming back year after year. So let's go and have a look and see what I've been sowing. Now I've just put some Feverfew seeds on this week to germinate. Nothing's happened yet because it was only 3 days ago, but we'll keep an eye on these. But it was just to show you that Feverfew is a great one to grow from a seed. Really pretty daisy-like filler flowers that are really prolific, and it germinates really easily as well. Easy to overwinter, so if you want something like that in your garden, I can highly recommend Feverfew. Another perennial that I can recommend for growing from seed is Aquilegia, and this I sowed a couple of weeks ago and it's just starting to germinate now. Lots of different little seedlings coming through there, so that shows that it is an easy one to germinate. And that was just Aquilegia seeds that were sown with a little covering of vermiculite on the top of them and popped in the greenhouse. And the greenhouse is unheated at the moment, so I'm not giving these any extra heat to germinate. Still nice and warm during the days in here to get the seedlings coming through. And Aqualesia will flower for you in May time, so you may or may not get flowers from it this first year, but if you manage to get some seedlings off to a good start now with lots of nice roots down, then you can plant them out in the garden in springtime and they may give 1 or 2 flowers this year, but you'll certainly get an abundance the year after. Over here we've got Penstemon, Twizzle Blue, and again they were sown at the same time as the Aquilegia and they have started to germinate as well. So these seeds are ones that take longer maybe than Cornflowers and other annuals like that, but they do germinate within a couple of weeks. So another seed that I like to grow is Eucalyptus. And I'm trying to expand how much eucalyptus I'm growing in the garden for foliage in the springtime. So I've got some here that have started to germinate after a couple of weeks, and we'll grow them on in the greenhouse over the winter, be able to plant them out next summer. So over here I have got some Achillea Summer Pastels Yarrow, and this is another fantastic flower perennial to grow from seed because it does germinate really easily. So these were sown on the 22nd of August and they're now ready for me to pot on into their own individual pots. It's fantastically easy to grow from seed. They overwinter really well in your unheated greenhouse, and then you can plant them out in springtime next year for summer flowers. Over here I've got Achillea the Pearl, which has germinated really well, and this is a lovely, lovely perennial that I like to grow in the garden. Over here, I am going to show you another perennial that I really like to grow from seed, and this is Eryngium, which is a thistle-like perennial, and I've got white glitter and I've got blue glitter germinating in here, and these were sown again at the end of August, and we've got some nice seedlings coming through here which will be ready to be potted on soon into their own individual pots and overwintered. So again, it would cost you quite a bit for an Eryngium plant if you were to buy it in the shops, garden centres, but if you grow from a seed packet, you've got all these lovely plants here for relatively little expenditure. So again, a really nice perennial to grow from seed. Seed tray here, I sowed these at the end of August, but I wouldn't be expecting anything yet. This is Ravenswing, and it is a lovely perennial. I really, really like Ravenswing. But I'm not expecting fast germination with this one. It's a bit like Astrantia, where I think I'm going to have to be patient, wait a while. It might take a period of cold, then a bit more warmth and a cold again to get this germinating. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens in the next couple of months. So over here I've got Limonium Sea Lavender, and this is a perennial, so it is not your annual status. This is Limonium Sea Lavender, and it has germinated really well from the end of August sowing. Lots of lovely little seedling plants that I can pot on into their individual pots now, and they should give me some lovely flowers over the coming years. So you can grow Scabies as an annual from seed, but you can also grow Scabies plants that are perennials from seed as well, and they make fantastic flowers in the summer in your garden. And this is a white variety of Scabies that's perennial, and they've just started to germinate after a couple of weeks. So I'll be able to pot those on, and I think I've got about 5 new plants there that have germinated, so that's fantastic. And over here we've got some blue perennial Scabies, and I've got about 10 of these plants here which are ready for potting on too. So lots of lovely new perennial plants I'll be able to have in the garden next year, which have a dual purpose of looking really lovely but also being great as a cut flower. So it's getting hot enough in here now that I can take my jacket off, so that's one layer off, and it also means that it is showing that a bit of sunshine, you can still get warmth in the greenhouse, and that helps bring on those seeds that we have just sown this week. So hopefully you've got some good ideas there for perennials that you can grow from seed. So we've got the Feverfew, we've got the Achillea, we've got the Ravenswing, we've got Eryngium, we've got our Aqualegia, we have also got our perennial Scabies, and that is not an exhaustive list. There are so many different perennials out there that you can grow from seed. Another one, actually, while I think about it just now, is Lunaria Cannon Went that I have in the greenhouse that I didn't show you as well. So that's another really easy one to grow from seed. And I will write a list of these perennials in the description, so it'll give you some ideas. And the perennials are fantastic because they keep giving. So year after year, they will come back with their lovely flowers. Whether you want them to fill your borders or whether you're a cut flower grower and you want to use them in arrangements, perennials are great because they do keep giving. Annuals, fantastic, easy to grow from seed, but they do just flower for that one season and then they're finished, whereas you know that your perennials are going to come up reliably year after year. So next we're going to have a little look at some of the seedlings of the annuals and how they're getting on. So these were sown mid-August to late August and are now doing really well in the greenhouse. But we have had problems. I have had caterpillars, which I hadn't spotted, and I got to them a bit too late. They were actually my biennials that they started to nibble. So I've removed the caterpillars and I have hopefully got my honesty regrowing in the side conservatory. I've taken them in to keep a closer eye on them just now, but they do look like they're recovering, but obviously will be set back several weeks from having been really well nibbled by the caterpillars. And the other thing that I had to keep an eye on in here was slugs. So we'll have a look at some of the seedlings that got attacked by slugs as well. So it does show you, even though you're in the greenhouse, you're not outside in your garden, pests can still get in and cause problems, and you do need to routinely check for them. So I'm just keeping my eye out for slug trails in here. I've been in the evenings to see if I can see them active and just take them out if I have found any. So over here we have got lots of lovely cornflower plants. Now these have all been grown from seed. 22nd of August, these were started off from seed, germinated. They had a few weeks where they were growing in the seed trays, and then they were potted on into their own individual pots. So these are all 3-inch pots that they have been put into, and they should manage to grow away in there fine for quite a while like that, and then be able to be planted out in the springtime. So the idea just now is just to make sure that they have enough moisture and don't dry out. They shouldn't need feeding. Cornflowers don't need any extra feed. So at the moment, making sure that they don't get too hot, make sure I ventilate the greenhouse on sunny days, and to make sure that they don't dry out and get enough moisture without waterlogging them. Over here we have got our Amimagus, and this was sown mid-August as well, so it has come away nicely. You can see new shoots coming up through there, and we've got our seed leaves growing away. They've got good roots as well. When I potted them on, you can see that there was a good root system starting to establish. The Ami was the big surprise of last year. Last year was the first year that I'd managed to overwinter it. I hadn't managed it successfully before, but I did last year. I planted it out in March, and by June I had the most amazing plants. They were much, much taller than me, really strong, sturdy stems. Amazing huge flowers, the best Amimagus that I think I've ever grown, and that resulted from a sowing just now in August, September time the year before, get them overwintered and then out into the garden early spring. And amazing what difference it was. The Amimagus that I sowed in February, March this year was in no way as good. It still had nice flowers, but definitely wasn't the size that the Amimagus was from an autumn sowing. So it was well worth doing. So these are Syringa, which make an absolutely beautiful foliage filler plant for bouquets in May time next year, May and June. And these were sown from seed on the 22nd of August, and it's now the 19th of September. So again, they're coming away really nicely with some good sets of leaves coming on them and some good root systems. And again, these are in 3-inch pots to grow on. So not everything germinates really quickly in the greenhouse for me. Some things do take longer than other things, and Oralia is one of those. Love Oralia, but it definitely is a slightly trickier one to germinate. It was sown at the end of August, so a few weeks ago now, and still no signs, but I think it will come. From previous experience of growing Oralia, I just have to be patient and it will germinate for me. It might want a period of cold and then a little bit of warmth again and a little bit of cold, and that might just bring it on. So the varying temperatures of autumn may well help with its germination. This is Rebecca Goldilocks, and it has been slower to get off to a good start because it does take a while to grow, but it's starting to get away now, and it will not be long before I can prick these out and pot them on into their own individual pots as well. This is Rebecca Cherry Brandy, which is doing just as well as the Goldilocks, so we're going to be able to prick them out and pot them on, and I'm really glad we've got these germinating because these are my slow growers for me. The Rebecca take a good long while, so if I can overwinter them in here, then they'll get off to a good start in the spring. This is Gypsophila Covent Garden, which is a lovely annual white flower which will come up for you early June time from a sowing just now, and definitely flowers much better from an autumn sowing than it does if you do a spring sowing. And it definitely needs potting on now. There's quite a few germinated here and they need their own space to grow on well. But this did brilliantly for me this year from an autumn sowing last year. So I'm going to do the same again this year. Get this potted on, get it overwintered, and then get it out in the garden, probably early March time, cover it with some fleece on any really cold days, and then I should get some really strong plants with lots of flowers late May, early June next year. Over here are my little Snapdragon seedlings that I sowed back in August. Snapdragons are very, very tiny seeds. It's quite difficult to space them out, so these are definitely going to need to be potted on when they're slightly larger to grow on so they don't get crowded in here. And the Snapdragons as well, when you sow the seeds, they just need to go on the surface. The seed is so fine that you don't want to cover it with lots of seed compost. You need to let some light into the seeds so that they'll germinate for you. Over here we've got some Dorcas, and this has germinated nicely, and again we'll need potting on soon. So all of these different annuals have been August sowings, and this is the stage they're at a few weeks later. Over here we've got some Cyanoglossum that is definitely needing potted on now. It's growing away really quickly this week. That is another lovely annual that looks a little bit like a forget-me-not that you can grow in your gardens with nice strong stems on it for flower arranging. Corncockles, absolutely fabulous, easy to grow from seed, really easy to grow from seed. They germinate very quickly and they grow away very quickly as well, so these definitely need potted on. So I've got some Nigella here as well that was sown at the end of August, and it will need potted on. You have to be a little bit careful when you're transplanting things like Nigella and Ami Madras because they don't really like their tap roots disturbed. They've got long root systems on them, so just be very gentle when you are potting them on that you don't break any of their fragile roots. I started to pot on the Ami Madras, but I haven't finished it. There's quite a few there that still need potted on, but you saw my tray of seedlings earlier where I had, and they definitely are much better when they've got their own individual space to grow on. They're not competing for light and nutrients then and space. So over here we've got some fabulous Scabies. They have germinated really well, looking really healthy, and the slugs haven't got to them, which is fantastic. We've got Salmon Queen Scabies here and Oxford Blue Scabies, and these will produce lovely flowers in the summer next year. Over here, I just wanted to show you the difference between my plants. So over here, we have got some lovely pink cornflowers, and these were growing in August, middle of August, germinated really quickly and started to grow away. Unfortunately, not all of them escaped the slugs. So the ones that you can see just now that I have under the camera, these ones escaped the slugs and they are growing away and getting really tall, nice plants. Ones over here were well nibbled by the slugs. I didn't get to them quick enough to rescue them. So what I have done is I've potted them on, and they're all starting to come away again now. They're just getting some new growth on them, but they were really well nibbled, and you can just see the difference there. That's those ones there, and then that is the ones that were untouched. So I'm definitely a couple of weeks behind on growth. They should catch up because I caught them in time, but it just shows you that slugs can be really damaging if you don't notice that they're in there nibbling your plants. So just check your greenhouse seed trays, make sure that there is none loitering in there in the early evenings and the night times, wanting to nibble away on your brand new seedlings. So it's fantastic to see so many seedlings doing really well in the greenhouse at the moment. Even those slug damaged ones, I think we've rescued in time and they'll grow away now. And I'm just going to pay particular attention over the next few weeks to make sure that they have no more slugs in the seed trays, and that every day I am checking that to make sure and just removing them if there are. So it's exciting this time of year because these are the promise of all these new flowers for next year. And what I need to do is just to keep an eye on my numbers. You don't want to sow so many seedlings that you haven't got room for them in your beds, and at the same time you don't want to have too few seedlings either. And it's always worth, when you're working out your numbers, just making sure that you have got a few extra seedlings, because you're not maybe going to get the whole lot through the winter, and the chances of me getting the whole lot through are really quite small, but we should get a substantial number surviving. This year I think it's going to be a cold winter actually. I just have a feeling. We didn't have very much snow and ice last year, but the autumn seems to be coming in earlier this year. We did have quite a lot of heat in the summer, and sometimes it just seems to be that we have quite a good summery summer and then we get quite a hard winter. So we'll wait and see. Obviously there's things that you can do if it is going to be really cold through the winter. I can cover these in fleece, and we will go over that if the temperature does dip down. We'll do some videos on how to look after the seedlings then, so you do need to reduce your watering and things as well. But for now, things are looking great. I just need to check my numbers, pot them up. When I'm happy I've got the right number, then I don't need to sow any more seeds. But if one or two things haven't germinated that well, I've still got time now to get them on as extras. So this time of year as well is a great time of year for sowing your sweet pea seeds. And this is something that I do in batches. So I do some sweet pea seeds now in October, end of September time. And I also do some in late January, early February, and then I will do some more in late March, early April time. And that just gives me a succession of sweet peas all through the summer. Now that's a theory anyway. So what I do, first of all, to make sure that my sweet peas have a good chance of germination, is I do soak them overnight in some water. So I just get some ramekins from the kitchen because they're a nice size, fill it with a little bit of water, put my seeds from the seed packet in there, and also I put the label in there as well, just so that I know which sweet pea seeds are which. Otherwise, when I came to sow them, I would never know which was which once they're in the water. And what happens to the seeds then is they plump up overnight, the seed coat is softened, and that just enables them, once they're in the seed compost, to germinate easily. Sometimes you might find after you have soaked them overnight, there's still some that are really tiny and really hard, and sometimes I don't think you will get germination from those ones. So it does show you which ones are going to germinate easily for you and which ones you might have more trouble with. Some people do take a little knife and they nick the seed coat and break it, and that might help in some of the tiny ones if they're still very hard after a night's soaking. Some people though, they don't soak their sweet pea seeds at all, they just put them straight in and they still get germination. So it's completely up to you as to what you want to do, but it's just something that I found helpful to me, is to soak them overnight. So let's have a look at them just now. So I've just lifted the label out of this little ramekin of sweet peas, and it is called Chris Harrod, this sweet pea. So that's a new one to try for me, and you can see that these sweet peas are looking really nice and plump. There's one over here on the left hand side that is just slightly smaller than the others after a nice soaking, but even that, it still looks like it has plumped up a wee bit from yesterday. So I think all of those ones will germinate really well for us. Over here in this little ramekin is sweet peas called Old Times, and again they're looking really great today actually. The vast majority of them really have plumped up nicely. Can maybe just see this one here is not as plump as the others. and I can feel that it's still quite hard, but we'll give it a go and see if it'll germinate for us, but the rest should be absolutely fine. I sow my sweet peas into half seed trays, and I filled them with seed compost, and then I have just laid them into a full-size seed tray of water to soak up from the bottom. So the compost is now nice and moist. A lot of people don't sow their sweet pea seeds into seed trays, they sow them directly into pots because sweet peas have long roots on them and they need quite a good depth of pot to grow down into. The reason that I sow my sweet pea seeds into half seed trays rather than pots is that I like to see which of the sweet peas have germinated, and so when I transplant them into the pots early on before their roots have really got going so that I'm not disturbing them too much, and then I can see what sweet peas are viable and which ones are not. So if I just planted them into the pots, then not all of them might germinate, and in that case I would have to then tip out all the compost, start again, lose that pot, or I would maybe only have one sweet pea seed that had come and I wanted 2 plants to be growing in that pot, because you can grow 2 or 3 sweet pea seeds together to grow into nice plants in a pot, because you can plant them 2 to a cane, 2 to 3 to a cane when they go outside. So from doing this just now, I will be able to see which sweet pea seeds have germinated, and I'll pop them on at an early stage and they'll grow away over the winter in the greenhouse. So I'm just going to cover those in some seed compost just now, and then I will see if they germinate within the next week to 10 days. Thanks so much for watching today's video. This is my 100th video on YouTube, and it has been a really exciting 18 months being able to bring you videos from the Cloudberry Flowers garden and from here in the greenhouse. I hope you've been enjoying them, and I hope that you have enjoyed learning along the way, just like I am every season. And I really love sharing what I learn with you, and there's lots more to come in the next few years as I change the garden and it evolves and we grow different cut flowers, and I can share all of these amazing things with you out in the garden. So in the coming weeks, I'm excited to be sharing with you my favourite books that might help with your Christmas list. I'm going to be excited about sharing what I've been doing in the garden, because I have been rejigging things outside, and I'm going to be excited sharing with you some of my favourite dahlias from this season, and also looking back at 2022's growing season and what worked and what didn't, because it has been one of the most difficult growing seasons I've had in the 8 years since I started, and a lot of that has been to do with the weather, but there's going to have to be a few learning points for next year to see if we can do things a bit better and work with the climate as it is changing at the moment. I hope that you have been finding the Cloudberry Flowers videos really useful, and if you have enjoyed them and you want to keep following along or share with your gardening friends and family, that would be fantastic. And do feel free to subscribe, and that just lets you know when there's new videos coming out and you can keep up to date. I'll be back next week with another video and show you what is happening as we get closer to October in the flower patch.